Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. We are here at the Fleming Museum on the campus of the University of Vermont. For 90 years, this has been a hub of culture and art for northern New England. In light of calls for social justice and equity, the staff of the Fleming Museum has begun to question the content of their galleries, interrogate the museum's past, and begin to shape its future. The fall exhibition, The Fleming Reimagined, Confronting Institutional Racism and Historical Oppression, is the first step on that journey. And joining me now is Janie Cohen. She is the director of the Fleming Museum. Welcome to Across the Fence.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So, how did this reimagining of the Fleming Museum begin?
So a lot of the issues that we're looking at, have been swirling around us for a long time, but we had really never focused and put resources towards them. So it was really a confluence of the murder of George Floyd in May of 2020 and the, kind of the reactivation of the movement around it and the pandemic. So immediately after the events of May 26 and George Floyd's murder, we as a staff just started talking, really talking about issues around racism and history of museums in general and history of the Fleming and, how the legacies of the history are still going. And the pandemic it gave us this window. One of the silver linings of it gave us this window in which we are not doing exhibition after exhibition and, weren't responding to visitors and not doing programming. So
right, you were shut down for a little while.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We had time to focus on this, yeah. So it was a very intense and challenging and, emotional and exciting process, not easy, and still going on. But it really gave us the opportunity to stop the ship and turn it.
So what kinds of issues have you been engaging in?
They range enormously from issues with the collections and the history of the collections. And like many museums of our era and our kind with global collections, many of the objects in the collection were stolen during the course of, colonial campaigns and wars. And so they came to us essentially in unethical ways and without the kind of information and social and historical context that you want. So dealing with the legacies of that. And then, one of them being that this has been just a very white-focused museum for 90 years, and in part because the state has been, and that is changing dramatically. So, really examining what the historical issues are, what the contemporary issues are, how authoritative all museums have been in the way we present work, the voices that are on the wall, the way the decisions are made. So it was in part looking at the collections, looking at exhibitions, how we want to kind of refocus them, and then the way we work together.
Well, let's talk about that. So as an organization, you prioritize this very challenging reimagining. How did that go? How has it affected staff? How does it affect the way you work?
Yeah, very completely in every way. So first I'll talk about just how we work as a staff. So historically, enormous museums are very hierarchical. You've got a lot of departments, a lot of department heads, and we have always been small. We're 9 people, total. So it's never been intensely hierarchical, but there are usually, there are silos within any organization. So, there was a curator, director, a curator, a head of education, and we didn't really get involved in each other's realm of work. And so now, I have an amazing staff, and everybody has things to contribute to everything we do. So in terms of, everything from, decision making on every level, we are meeting about exhibitions, about programs, about outreach. So it is much more consensus, it's much more collaborative, it is less authoritative. And it takes so much longer.
But rewarding and probably more lasting.
Totally.
What do you envision for the overall outcome of this reassessment, all of this work you're doing?
So all of these changes, and they will be evident the minute visitors walk in the building, and we're there to help explain and share what we're doing, and but ultimately I think that just turning the museum around from this kind of authoritative, here's what we want you to see and here's what we want you to know about, to include many, many voices in the decision making, in what we say about the work and what is on the wall and how the programs are managed, who's involved in them. So it will be much more inclusive, really kind of opening the doors, to the broadest community, and very iterative in terms of it will change as we go. We'll be responsive, inclusive and responsive, as opposed to planning years and years ahead and making decisions about what we feel, the community should be interested in.
And this new show is very collaborative as well.
Absolutely, every part of it, yeah.
The 2021 fall exhibition, Fleming Reimagined, Confronting Institutional Racism and Historical Oppression, directly deals with some of the issues we've just discussed. To talk about the exhibit and its various elements, we turn to Andrea Rosen. She's the curator of the Fleming Museum. So Andrea, it's great to have you with us. And one of the elements, one of four, is absence. It may be both the easiest and the most difficult really to discuss. What sorts of conversations are you hoping to start by removing pieces of art?
Yeah, so we have taken down works of art, or in one case closed a gallery, that caused harm to our visitors, and particularly our visitors of color. Some show racial stereotypes, some celebrate enslavers, some show the silhouette of a ship and bring up these legacies of trauma of colonialism and slavery. One was our African gallery, which was really looking out of date by now. So instead of just pasting up something new in those places, we decided to stop and reflect on those absences. So in their place, you will find labels written by staff reflecting on the things that Janie discussed, how the museum's decisions in the past have impacted our visitors of color and why we need to think about them anew so we can make different choices in the future. We have to hold ourselves accountable for those past choices in order to build trust and make better choices in the future.
So have you received comments at the Fleming from people of color that there are issues that are problematic here?
Some. I think one of the issues is that we haven't been listening enough, and we haven't been creating those opportunities for us to listen, for us to hear those comments. So we've gotten them secondhand through classes. Our curator of education, Alice, had heard them about the African Gallery. That was one of the things that inspired us to close it finally. Our colleague Cynthia has heard it from her colleagues of color across UVM's campus, but we haven't built those opportunities for us to hear from them directly. And so one of the things we're working on and will be ongoing is listening sessions with BIPOC visitors so we can learn what we need to learn before we move forward.
Wonderful. So then let's talk about your storytelling salon and the learning studio. These are two other elements of your exhibition to spark conversation. Tell us about those.
Yeah, so our two first floor exhibitions, both of them combine recent acquisitions and works that have been in the collection for a while. A lot of BIPOC and queer artists in those shows. And we are using them to think about our spaces as more interactive. So in the storytelling salon, we have this very comfortable, lovely living room-like space, and that is where some of these listening sessions with BIPOC community members will be taking place. And then in the learning studio, that was a gallery that we adopted as our classroom space during COVID because it was much more spaced out. And we learned from that we want to keep having those conversations in public. So half of the gallery will still be classroom space, UVM classes will be coming through, but now our public will get to encounter those artworks in a direct way and listen in on those conversations, have those conversations with staff. And then part of that gallery is using those artworks, those recent acquisitions, to reflect on some of the things that Janie said about how we're working differently. Process, collaboration, slowing down, showing the messiness of what we're doing. And the artworks let us talk about that through these labels and a personal voice from the staff and students.
And even feeling comfortable with the messiness. So when I just went through the learning studio, you have the staff has made comment on the choices that you've made about the artwork that's there, and some of it is even about this is a messy process.
Yes, exactly. And I think that was another thing about this process, that being okay with showing the messiness, being okay with showing the work in process, because it can't be solved in one semester or one summer's worth of work. So we have to show that we are open to that.
So visitors might even be part of a class or part of this stuff. It's really wonderful. And another part of the fall exhibit is abstracts. Mm-hmm. So tell us about how that came about.
So it's so interesting how the change has kind of a domino effect, a ripple effect. When we were deconstructing the African gallery, we had to take down works in our New England gallery, the balcony in our marble court. And once that emptiness was there, it's like, well, why put back the things that we already had? You know, making space, let's not do things the same way, let's do things differently. And so the same way that the blank spaces and absences let us think about seeing something different there, we thought that abstract artworks leave space for the visitor and for us to imagine something different there. So instead of New England landscapes on the balcony, you'll see a bunch of abstract works from a diverse group of artists that have, most of which have been in storage for a long time and not been seen. So it's also a really great opportunity to reflect on unseen aspects of our collection.
So as curator, what are you most excited about how what will result from this exhibit?
My sincerest hope is that the Fleming can become a place that's more comfortable for more people. You know, not everyone will love museums. Museums might not be for everyone, but they should be for anyone. There shouldn't be a barrier to entry, whether it's our admission price, whether it's that feeling you get of needing to whisper. We don't want you to whisper in the museum. We want you to be engaged in conversation, and part of that starts with us and how we model that for our visitors.
Fantastic. Andrea Rosen, thank you so much for being with us. And earlier, Janie Cohen. And good luck to you, and a very interesting fall coming up, I'm sure.
Yes, thank you, Fran.
The Fleming Reimagined, Confronting Institutional Racism and Historical Oppression is open now through December 10th. Visit uvm.edu/Fleming for museum hours and COVID-19 protocols. The Fleming Museum remains free of charge to all visitors. And that's our program for today. I'm Fran Stoddard. Stay well.